Hello everyone and welcome to this virtual event. My name is Ana Naranjo and I am the EMEA PDM lead for Citrix at Microsoft, and together with some of our colleagues and experts at Microsoft and Citrix, we will explore today how we can grow and develop our virtual desktop business in EMEA. We will do that together, looking at our customers and also working closely with our partners. This is why I am excited today that we are sponsoring and participating at this EMEA Work Summit, as Citrix is an important partner to us in our business around Windows Virtual Desktop, together with Azure and Citrix Cloud. Join me and let's take a quick look at the agenda. Our agenda has two parts. Today we'll review the first part, in which we will be able to see how better together we can encourage our customers into moving to the cloud, as to how to leverage Azure and Windows Virtual Desktop, and then as a customer value from our colleagues with Citrix. This content has a part 2 that is available on demand, and you will receive the link to them. And this part 2 is more focused on the industry. In this agenda, you can see the main topics discussed in these conversations that we held with Citrix and Microsoft on industry. I hope you enjoy very much our content. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Michel Rood and I'm a Windows Virtual Desktop Global Black Belt. And today I'll be talking to you about Windows Virtual Desktop, what makes it special, what things are unique to it, and what benefits our customers and partners have when using it. Windows Virtual Desktop has always been a solution which allows customers to work remotely. But in the recent era, as you can probably imagine, it's become more and more important to enable remote working and remote learning in a secure fashion. Not only that, but it's also the case that many of our customers have to deal with economical uncertainty, both in the current time, but also in the future when they have to save costs. And Windows Virtual Desktop is a great solution to help you deal with that situation. The first way that Windows Virtual Desktop does that is by making it very easy to create this remote working environment. You can do that very quickly, but also in a secure fashion. And you can do that in days and not months, which is very important when you have to react to the changing environments. The second thing that's really great about it is that it will work with your existing Microsoft licenses. We'll dig into which licenses exactly those are in a future slide, but for most customers it means that you don't require any additional licenses to be able to start using Windows Virtual Desktop. And finally, the way that you consume Windows Virtual Desktops is in an OpEx method, meaning that you don't have to invest a lot of money beforehand before you can start using Windows Virtual Desktop. So you only pay for Windows Virtual Desktop when you actually use it. If you don't use it, if you don't end up using it, then you won't pay for it. So that's a great benefit that allows you really to use Windows Virtual Desktop to help you deal with both the current situation, but also the future that you'll face. When we look at the cost of Windows Virtual Desktop, there are some great features, if you like, of Windows Virtual Desktop that make it very economically viable. And in the coming slides, I'll explain to you which those are and why they are important. The first one you may know about is the fact that Windows Virtual Desktop has a new flavor of Windows that you can only use with WVD. And we created this new flavor of Windows because without Windows Virtual Desktop, you basically have two options. You have the option to use Windows Server, which is a very popular choice. And it's a popular choice because you get a great user density, which means a lower cost per user. But it's not great for the user experience, and it's also not very good for application compatibility because it's a server operating system. On the flip side of that, we have Windows 10 Enterprise or even Windows 7, which is great for the user experience because customers get real Windows 10. It's also great for the application compatibility, again, because most applications are written for a Windows desktop operating system and not for a server operating system. But it's not so good for the cost because you have to supply each user with one VM, which is a bit costly. And Windows 10 Multi-Session sits right in the middle, giving you really the best of both worlds. So you get the density of Windows Server, meaning multiple users can log on to the same Windows 10 virtual machine, but you get real Windows 10, both from a user experience perspective, as well as from an application compatibility perspective, all with Windows 10 Enterprise Security enabled. So that's really a great benefit of WVD. And the great news is that you can use WVD with the Microsoft solution, but also when you use Citrix Cloud and WVD or VMware, you can use Windows 10 Multi-Session too. So if we dig in a little bit further, why is Windows 10 Multi-Session such a great economic benefit? Like I said the first time, is that you can have multiple users on the same server, and that's going to save you money for two reasons. The first is that whenever you run an instance of Windows, there's a certain amount of base resources that you have to provide. So it's memory, it's CPU, it's storage, so IOPS specifically. That, if you use one user to one VM, is effectively a cost per user because each user has their own VM. If you use it running Windows 10 Multi-Session, it's only per server. So just imagine that you need 2 GB of RAM, 10% of the CPU, and 10% of the storage to run Windows 10. Then if you have 25 users on the same server, you can basically divide that by 12. So that's one big benefit, giving you better density and lower cost per user. The other one is that when you use a multi-user operating system, there's built-in efficiencies. So if you run 10 copies of Word or Outlook, you're not consuming 10 times the storage or not 10 times the RAM. There's efficiencies in the multi-user operating systems that really only make it so that you consume it once. So that's another benefit, again, lowering your cost per user because you have multiple users on the same server. So that's a great benefit to remember. The other one is that when you decide to use Windows Server, because remember with WVD, you can use Windows 7, Windows 10, and Windows Server 2012 all the way up to Windows Server 2019. So you can choose whatever operating system you prefer. If you run Windows Server, you have the benefit that when you use this Windows Server operating system in WVD, you do not pay for the Windows Server license. So that's a great savings on your cost, which is also often referred to as the Linux rate. Then the best of all worlds, if you like, is that if you migrate from on-premises Windows Server deployments to WVD with Windows 10 Multi-Session. Because not only do you get these density benefits of Windows 10 Multi-Session, but you can also not use your RDCal anymore. Because when you use Windows Server on-premises, you need to have this RDCal, the Remote Desktop Client Access License, because you're using multi-session. But when you use Windows 10 Multi-Session in Azure with WVD, although you get the multi-user benefits, you don't have to pay for the RDCal. So that in itself is also a very big savings. So those are like the three key cost savers that I would recommend that you remember, because they can make a very big difference. So like I said earlier, all of these benefits are available for customers that use WVD, and the entitlements for WVD are pretty broad. You can see the list here on the screen, but basically what you need to remember is that if you're using some form of desktop virtualization today, it's very likely that you already have the right to use WVD. So it's a very broad entitlement. which makes it so that you can start using WVD. This is not a technically enforced entitlement. It's just that you have the right to use the WVD service. So those are the things that make it very interesting for you to start using WVD. But the final thing I wanted to explain to you, which is very special about WVD, for customers that are coming from on-prem, which is usually 90% of our customers, the thing that's very different from using desktop virtualization on-prem is typically when people use desktop virtualization on-prem, they build it for 3 to 5 years. And then after 3 to 5 years, they decide what they want to do next. And if they want to continue doing on-prem, then they have perhaps a new version of Windows, a new version of Office, a new version of some other software, a new hardware, most importantly. And then that cycle repeats. And that's really how it went for the last 20 years. But it's very bad for innovation and also not very good for your cost, which is exactly the opposite of WVD, because WVD not only gets better over time, because it's a real PaaS service, but it also gets cheaper over time. And there's some recent examples that we have only in the year that WVD has existed. So for example, there have been new VM types that have come out. The VM types that you use for your session hosts, where the users actually work. And those VMs are faster, newer, but they're also cheaper. So that combination on-prem never exists. A similar thing would be that there could be a VM type that's better suited for workloads. For example, we've recently released the NVV4 Azure VMs, which are great for people that need a GPU and provide a great density at an even lower cost. We've seen changes in storage. So for example, with WVD, what's become available is a storage option for the local disk that's free. It's called the ephemeral disk, which is again a great change in the cost that you may have for your deployment. And the last example that we have is that our storage, or the network storage that you may need for your user profiles, we recently announced a price cut in that, so it became 33% cheaper, which is also a great benefit. But the point I'm trying to make is not a listing of all the things that have become cheaper, but to make you realize that this benefit of your remote worker environment or your remote learning environment, that it gets better and cheaper over time, is something that you probably have never witnessed before, and is only possible when you use WVD in a cloud resource like that. I explained to you in this session all the benefits and all the economical benefits of WVD. And it's very important to remember that all of these benefits apply whether you use the Microsoft native solution or the Citrix solution. And I'm sure that our Citrix colleagues will tell you more about that. Thank you very much.
Obviously, today we'll talk about the Citrix and Microsoft better together story. And obviously, we've all been affected by this, what some people call new normal or post-pandemic. Just the fact that work is no longer a place, it's what you do. And obviously for IT, this have made a lot of new requirements in terms of be able to deliver IT resources, not only occasionally remote with certain use cases for certain users, but essentially the complete IT environment to all their users. And Citrix has been engaged in a number of these customer engagements through this year, where essentially IT need to deliver this to unmanaged devices over unprotected networks, and still have a solid and easy to manage IT delivery. The requirement for also protecting this information certainly hasn't been lower, because we're now providing IT to devices that might not be managed and controlled by IT. And at the same time, the requirement is for a great and seamless, transparent user experience for the users. And this is where actually desktop virtualization have been almost rediscovered, we can say, to solve many of those use cases. And that's essentially what we'll talk about today. And as I said before, it really come to life Also, the fact that Microsoft have enabled this to run as a cloud service and not requiring customers to have their own data centers to kind of take the benefit of what we used to call centralized computing. So what is the benefit of Citrix then? Well, I'm going to touch the high level, and high level is essentially three main components. And the first one is what we used to call hybrid cloud, meaning that while customers have a belief that they want to move stuff to the cloud, obviously there will be situations, workloads, applications, or information that for various reasons require to be on-prem. And with the Citrix solution, it enables that single pane of glass or the single window that you talked about, Björn, for the users, but still accessing resources that maybe are both on the on-prem solution as well as exist in Azure. And living and managing that hybrid solution, we believe, is going to be for many customers for many years. The other part is what is called optimized operations. And this is probably a signum of Citrix. In fact, many customers have bought the virtualization solutions from us because it enables IT to handle and manage IT operations around application and information in a much more secure and much more effective way. So we've developed things like image management, app layering, and various different administrative tools so that there's a single pane of administrative tools to manage the environment. And the third one is really around user experience. And this has been something that's been mostly more important in the recent years, especially as Citrix and the desktop virtualization solution expands to be not only a solution used occasionally when you're remote, but really your primary way of accessing IT, because again, IT should be delivered to you where you work, not to a certain place. So there's a whole bunch of technologies under the hood to make sure that the user has a great user experience, and Björn will come into this in just a second. In fact, why don't you take it further and show us a bit more specific capabilities that we think is of great value?
Yes, I can, and to show you a highlight of the top 10, without going into detail on any of them, Autoscale is we're going to dive into that one because it's all about reducing cost, efficient of load balancing. Then you have the advanced monitoring to have the easy troubleshooting of a system and monitoring how performance on branch offices, on application, on network, how that can be managed. Also integrated with what Microsoft has delivered from Azure as a service. And of course, we're going to dive into the Citrix HCX technology because that's all about humans. It's where the user experience is. So that's we're going to dive into. But this is the top 10, which we can, if you contact your Citrix rep on your Microsoft rep, we can teach you on this and dive down into each one of them so you can understand them fully. But I'm just going to show you the high level the design of Windows Virtual Desktop and explain what we do when we say better together and we say Citrix CVAD and Windows Virtual Desktop together. So what we really do when we say put Citrix on top of Windows Virtual Desktop is like we are removing the managed by Microsoft on the control plane and replacing that with Citrix. From Citrix Cloud, and then we bring our services in. As I said, Autoscale when it comes to reducing cost, optimize the workloads, because that's all down to total cost of ownership, but also when it comes to monitoring and analytics on security, performance, and usage. It's very important that you can add that to the equation of why Citrix and Microsoft are better. The next thing we do is replacing what's in the Azure subscription, where you're replacing that with Citrix services along with Microsoft services. You're combining both them together. Like when we say MCS, and we say, yeah, we both are using MCS, but we are optimizing MCS with IOS, so we have a more efficient way of running the workloads, which again reduce the cost, and that's hugely important to have efficient and good services. But then we also, when it comes to application lifecycle management with app layering and how end user is be handling, We are also talking about what the resources which is running on our own data center, the on-prem data center, where you have done investment in different type of hardware, hypervisors and things like that. And maybe the workload is not optimized yet for moving to Azure. Maybe you will wait until you have removed it totally and replaced it in Azure, or need more time to migrate over time the workload to Azure. So then you already here have one control plane, one administration GUI, where you can control your on-prem and your Azure workloads. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the HDX, which is all about the end user experience, the fluently of people. So there you have all the services in our protocol is like 30 or 40 different protocols where we add the functionality of end user experience, Teams optimization, how you can do secure browsing, how you can do high graphic, how you can run multimedia and functionality on a broad number of clients. No one can support more clients than Citrix Workspace. So then again, hybrid is part of the equation. If a company acquires or merging, maybe they have a different strategy. Maybe they have been running Google both on the public side and also on the identity. So to merge them into one single glass of pane is easy. And then you can start the work of converting them from one platform to our Azure platform without losing any downtime, and people can get the job done. And of course, add SaaS application to the equation. It's part now. More and more applications come from outside the data center, but should be delivered on a safe, in a safe manner to the end user. So it's important. And I'm going to show you a few examples, and I'm going to talk a little bit about cost at the end of our session here. It's all about HDX, how we can optimize and reduce cost in a flexible way. So here you can see no GPU, no bandwidth restriction. Here you can see the difference between Windows Virtual Desktop and Citrix with MCS IO optimization. And look on the uses of memory. Come on the native one and with the Citrix way of doing it. It's a huge difference in the user experience and also the cost of running it. So here is one example. So diving down into the cost at the end of this session is all about that. Yeah, people say Citrix is expensive, or why should we put Citrix on top of Microsoft? It's all about cost. It's just adding cost. No, we don't. Depending on the use case. Here you have Citrix CVAD Premium. It's like all the bells and whistles we have. And they are equal to in price. It's like 480,000 compared to 484,000. It's like neck to neck. But if we go into seeing the different use case, we say, okay, we don't need all the premium feature. We can just use the advanced, which is maybe more than Windows Virtual Native has by itself. But seeing the advanced, then you will see that we are reducing the price by $90,000. Maybe it can be $100,000. I don't know. But you have to look into what is the use case and what are the need you need to solve, because it's all about user experience and cost. And that's the reason why we're saying that we at Citrix transforming how people work and reimagining employee experience by increasing productivity and engagement. It's just like reading a Microsoft slide. They're saying the same, reducing cost, get people to smile, and thank you for our part in this webinar. And on behalf of Microsoft and Citrix, say we are better together. And if you would like to learn more, just take contact with your Microsoft partner or the Citrix partner, and we will be able to help you. So have a nice day.
Thanks, Björn. Bye now.